Dr. Marcus Coleman walked down the bright white halls of Neo Geneva Station. His black leather bag hung heavy on his shoulder, filled with data chips and research notes about dead alien races. The station floated in space around Jupiter, spinning slowly to create fake gravity. Through the tall windows, he could see the giant planet's red and orange storms swirling like angry paint. Marcus was 28 years old and one of the best alien history experts in human space. He had spent 5 years studying the Vorthan Empire, a race that died out long before humans reached the stars. His office was small and cramped, buried deep in the research section of the station. The wealthy people who lived in the fancy upper levels never came down here. The station had two types of people: rich families who paid millions to live in luxury suites, and smart people like Marcus, who earned their spots through hard work. The rich ones controlled most of the station's money and made the important decisions. They looked down on researchers like him, especially those who came from poor colony worlds. Marcus grew up in the Detroit Underground, a mining colony built in old tunnels beneath the earth. His grandmother Anna raised him after his parents died, in a tunnel collapse. She cleaned offices and saved every credit to send him to school. "Education is the one thing they can never take from you," she always said. "Knowledge makes you free." Today Marcus was nervous. He had to present his latest discovery to the station council. The monthly meetings brought together researchers and the wealthy sponsors who funded their work. Marcus had found something amazing in the Vorthan ruins on Titan. Ancient writing that described their fighting methods and battle tactics. It could help humanity understand how they thought and lived. He entered the large meeting room. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and real wood panels covered the walls. The rich sponsors sat in comfortable chairs around a curved table. They wore expensive clothes and jewelry that cost more than most people made in a year. The researchers sat in simple metal chairs along the sides. Richard Blackwood lounged in the center seat like a king. His father owned half the mining operations in the Jupiter system. Richard was 30 years old but had never worked a day in his life. His blonde hair was perfectly styled, and his blue suit probably cost more than Marcus made in 6 months. Next to him sat his girlfriend Lisa Hamilton. Her family controlled the shipping lanes between Earth and Mars. She had red hair and green eyes, and she always held her phone ready to record everything. Carl Winters sat on Richard's other side. His family made weapons for the military. He was big and strong with the kind of muscles that came from expensive body modifications. Danny Pierce completed their group. His parents owned 3 space stations, and he acted like he owned this one too. Marcus stood at the front podium and activated the holographic display. Images of ancient Vorthan temples appeared in the air, covered with strange symbols and carvings. "The Vorthan Empire lasted for 10,000 years, he began. "They conquered dozens of star systems before they disappeared. But they were more than just warriors. They had a complex culture that valued both strength and wisdom." He showed pictures of Vorthan armor and weapons, explaining how they combined art and function. The other researchers listened carefully, taking notes and asking good questions. But Richard and his friends whispered to each other and laughed at private jokes. "The most interesting discovery," Marcus continued, "is how they trained their fighters. They did not just learn to use weapons. They studied history, philosophy, and science. They believed a true warrior must understand what they were fighting to protect." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the head of the archaeology department, nodded with approval. She was a small woman with gray hair who had worked on alien ruins for 30 years. "This could change how we understand pre-contact civilizations," she said. Richard raised his hand with a smirk. "I have a question, Dr. Coleman." He made the title sound like an insult. "How do we know your translations are correct? These symbols could mean anything. Maybe you are just seeing what you want to see." Marcus kept his voice calm and professional. "I cross-referenced the symbols with 3 other Vorthan sites. The patterns are consistent across all locations. I also used the translation matrix, developed by the Xenolinguistics Institute on Mars." "But you grew up in some underground colony, right?" Lisa asked, her phone pointed at Marcus. "Did they even have proper schools down there?" Heat rose in Marcus's face, but he controlled his expression. "I earned my doctorate from Cambridge University. My thesis on Vorthan social structures was published in the Journal of Xenoarchaeology. Carl leaned back in his chair. Must be nice getting all those charity scholarships. Some of us had to work for our positions. This was a lie. Carl had never worked a day in his life, but he enjoyed the cruel joke. Yeah, Danny added. I wonder what the admission standards really were. Did they have quotas to fill? The room grew quiet. The other researchers looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Speaking up would mean making enemies of the people who controlled their funding. Marcus felt their silent support, but it did not help with the burning shame in his chest. My qualifications speak for themselves, Marcus said quietly. The evidence supports my conclusions about Vorthan culture. Their fighting techniques were based on discipline and study, not just brute force. Richard stood up slowly. Maybe you should stick to what you know best. I am sure there are some nice safe desk jobs that would suit you better. Marcus finished his presentation without responding to more insults. When the meeting ended, the researchers filed out quickly, avoiding eye contact. Dr. Vasquez lingered, writing notes in her tablet. Richard and his friends gathered around Lisa's phone, probably planning their next cruel joke. Marcus packed his materials with steady hands, though his heart pounded with anger and humiliation. He thought about his grandmother's words about knowledge and freedom. Right now, knowledge felt like a burden that made him a target. As he walked back to his small quarters, Marcus could hear their laughter echoing down the hallway behind him. 2 weeks passed since Marcus gave his presentation about the Vorthan Empire. He spent most of his time in the research labs, working alone with ancient data files and artifact scans. The discovery he made on Titan kept growing more important as he dug deeper into the evidence. Hidden inside a collapsed Vorthan temple, his remote scanners had found something impossible. Human DNA traces in metal that was thousands of years old. The genetic markers matched modern humans perfectly, but they dated back to long before Earth's first space flights. This meant humans had been in space far longer than anyone knew. Marcus ran the test 5 times to make sure. Each result came back the same. Humans had somehow reached the Vorthan worlds thousands of years ago, long before official first contact, with any alien race. This discovery could win him the Galactic Science Prize and change everything people believed about human history. He worked 18 hours a day, checking every detail. His small room filled up with printouts and data crystals. Empty food containers piled up on his desk. Dr. Elena Vasquez brought him coffee and reminded him to sleep, but Marcus could not stop. This was the biggest discovery of his career. The monthly social gathering arrived too soon. Marcus wanted to skip it, but Dr. Vasquez insisted he attend. You need to present your findings, she said. This is too important to keep secret. The main social hall buzzed with conversation and laughter. Rich sponsors wore their finest clothes and drank expensive wine from crystal glasses. Servers in white uniforms carried trays of fancy food that cost more than most people made in a week. Musicians played soft music in the corner while couples danced on the polished floor. Marcus wore his only good suit, which looked cheap next to the designer clothes around him. He carried a small data pad with his presentation files. His hands shook slightly as he thought about sharing his discovery with these people who already hated him. Richard Blackwood stood near the bar with his usual group. He wore a black suit that probably cost 10,000 credits. Lisa Hamilton looked stunning in a red dress that sparkled with tiny diamonds. Carl Winters had squeezed his huge frame into a dark blue outfit, while Danny Pierce wore clothes that screamed money from every thread. They saw Marcus enter and their faces lit up with cruel amusement. Richard whispered something to Lisa, who pulled out her phone and started recording. They were planning something, and Marcus felt his stomach tighten with dread. Dr. Vasquez took the small stage and called for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Coleman has made a remarkable discovery that I believe will change our understanding of human history. Marcus walked to the podium on unsteady legs. The crowd fell silent, but he could feel the hostile energy from Richard's group. He activated his data pad and the holographic display showed images of the Titan dig site. 3 weeks ago, my remote scanners found human genetic material inside ancient Vorthan structures, he began. The DNA is definitely human, but it dates back over 5,000 years. This suggests that humans reached alien worlds long before our recorded history. Excited murmurs ran through the crowd of researchers. This was huge news that could rewrite the history books. But the wealthy sponsors looked bored or annoyed. They did not care about ancient history unless it made them money. Marcus showed detailed genetic comparisons and dating analysis. The evidence was solid and undeniable. Humans had somehow traveled to distant stars thousands of years before they were supposed to have that technology. It was impossible, but the proof was right there. How convenient, Richard called out loudly, interrupting the presentation. Another miracle discovery from our charity case researcher. The room went quiet. Marcus felt his face burn with embarrassment, but he kept his voice steady. The evidence has been verified by 3 independent laboratories. The genetic signatures are unmistakable. Sure they are, Lisa said, holding up her phone to record Marcus's reaction. Just like all your other amazing discoveries. Funny how you always find exactly what you need to stay important. Carl stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow across the room. Maybe someone should check if this research is even real. Could be made up to get more funding. Danny joined in with a nasty laugh. Yeah, we all know how these scholarship programs work. Lower standards, fake results, whatever it takes to fill the quotas. The insults hit Marcus like physical blows. His grandmother's voice echoed in his mind, telling him to stay strong and keep his dignity. But these people were attacking not just him, but his life's work and the memory of everyone who helped him get here. My research methods are available for review by any qualified scientist, Marcus said, his voice getting harder. The evidence speaks for itself. Richard stepped closer to the stage, wineglass in hand. Does it? Or are you just another fake scholar who got here through pity points? The crowd watched in uncomfortable silence. Some of the researchers wanted to defend Marcus, but they knew speaking up would cost them their jobs. The wealthy sponsors controlled everything, and crossing them meant losing funding and career opportunities. Marcus gripped the podium with white knuckles. These people were trying to destroy everything he had worked for. Years of study, sacrifice, and sleepless nights meant nothing to them. They saw him as entertainment, a target for their cruel games. I have answered your questions, Marcus said quietly. If you have scientific objections to my methodology, I welcome professional discussion. Carl laughed and moved closer. Professional discussion? With someone who probably cheated their way through school? The big man reached the edge of the stage, his face twisted with ugly pleasure. Marcus realized this was no longer about his research. They wanted to humiliate him in front of everyone, to put him in his place and remind him that he did not belong among his betters. Lisa kept recording everything, expecting to capture Marcus breaking down under pressure. She wanted to see him, cry or beg, to prove that he was weak and unworthy of respect. But Marcus did not break. He stood straight and tall, meeting their hateful stares with calm dignity. Something dangerous flickered in his dark eyes, a hint of steel that made Carl hesitate for just a moment. The confrontation was far from over. The days after Marcus's presentation became a nightmare. Richard and his friends spread lies about his research throughout the station. They told people his genetic evidence was fake, and his credentials were bought with charity money. The rumors spread like poison through the wealthy social circles. Marcus tried to focus on his work, but the harassment followed him everywhere. Carl would bump into him in the hallways, making it look like an accident while spilling coffee on his clothes. Danny blocked his path to the research labs, forcing Marcus to take longer routes through maintenance tunnels. Lisa recorded everything with her phone, collecting footage for their cruel entertainment. The worst part was how other people reacted. The researchers who knew Marcus was brilliant stayed silent to protect their own jobs. The wealthy sponsors enjoyed the show, treating Marcus like a circus animal performing for their amusement. Even the station security guards, who were paid by the rich families, pretended not to see what was happening. Dr. Elena Vasquez tried to help, but her complaints to station management went nowhere. The harassment was always subtle enough to deny. A bump in the hallway, a spilled drink, whispered insults that could not be proven. Richard and his friends were experts at staying just below the line of official rules. Marcus felt trapped. He could not fight back without losing his position and proving their point about him being violent and dangerous. His grandmother had taught him that anger was poison that hurt the person who carried it. But the constant attacks were wearing him down, making it hard to think or work. The breaking point came during the formal monthly dinner. The station's dining hall was decorated with flowers and candles. Rich families sat at round tables covered with white cloth and expensive china. The food was prepared by master chefs brought in from Earth's finest restaurants. Marcus sat alone at a small table near the back. His simple black suit looked shabby compared to the designer clothes around him. He ate quietly, trying to avoid attention and finish the meal quickly. But Richard's table was nearby, and their voices carried across the room. "Look at him sitting. There like he belongs," Carl said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "Probably never ate real food before coming here. I heard he stole data from real scientists to write his papers," Danny added with a nasty laugh. "That's how these charity cases work. They take credit for other people's work." Lisa held up her phone to record Marcus's reaction. "Maybe we should ask him to prove his research is real. If he can't, everyone will know he's a fraud." Marcus kept eating, pretending not to hear them. His hand stayed steady as he cut his food, but inside he felt rage building like pressure in a sealed container. These people had everything handed to them and still felt the need to destroy someone who earned his place through hard work. Richard stood up and walked over to Marcus's table. He carried a glass of wine that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. His face was flushed with alcohol and cruel pleasure. "Dr. Coleman," Richard said in a voice that dripped with fake politeness, "we were just discussing your amazing discoveries. Tell us, how does someone from the underground colonies become such a brilliant scientist?" The dining hall grew quiet. Other diners turned to watch, sensing drama about to unfold. Marcus looked up at Richard's smirking face and felt something cold settle in his stomach. "I studied hard and earned my degrees through legitimate academic work," Marcus said calmly. "My research has been peer-reviewed and published in respected journals." Carl stood up from the other table, his huge frame casting a shadow across the room. "That's not what we heard. Word is you cheated your way through school and steal ideas from better scientists." "Yeah," Danny added, joining them at Marcus's table. "Maybe it's time someone exposed you for what you really are." Richard leaned down close to Marcus's face. "A fake, a fraud, a charity case who doesn't belong here with real people." Marcus felt the familiar burn of humiliation, but something else was rising with it. A cold anger that he had kept locked away for years. His grandmother's voice whispered in his mind, but other voices were speaking too. Older lessons from harder teachers in the underground fighting pits where he had earned money for school. "I think you should apologize to everyone here," Carl said, moving to block Marcus's exit from the table. "Admit you're a fraud, and maybe we'll let you slink back to whatever hole you crawled out of." Lisa moved closer with her phone, excited to capture Marcus's breakdown. She expected tears, begging, maybe him running away in shame. That would make perfect entertainment for their social media feeds. But Marcus did not break. He stood up slowly, his movements controlled and precise. Something in his posture made Carl take a half step back without realizing it. "I have nothing to apologize for," Marcus said quietly. "My work speaks for itself." Richard threw his wine at Marcus's face. The red liquid splashed across his suit and dripped onto the white tablecloth. "How about now, charity boy? Ready to admit what you really are?" The room gasped at the blatant attack. Even the wealthy diners looked shocked at Richard's behavior. But Carl saw it as permission to escalate things further. "Maybe we should teach him some manners," Carl said, reaching out to grab Marcus's shoulder. That was when everything changed. Carl's hand never reached its target. Marcus moved like flowing water, stepping aside and redirecting Carl's momentum. With a gentle touch that sent the big man stumbling into the table, wine glasses crashed to the floor as Carl tried to catch his balance. The movement was so smooth and effortless that most people missed it. 1 second Carl was reaching for Marcus. The next he was tangled up in tablecloth and broken glass. It looked almost like an accident. But Lisa's phone caught every detail of Marcus's precise footwork and hand placement. Carl roared with anger and charged at Marcus like an angry bull. This time Marcus did not hide what he was doing. He stepped forward to meet the attack, his hands moving in patterns that seemed to dance around Carl's wild swings. A quick strike to the wrist made Carl drop his guard. A gentle push at exactly the right moment sent him crashing into another table. The dining hall erupted in shocked whispers. Richard and Danny stood frozen, suddenly realizing they had made a terrible mistake. Marcus stood calmly in the center of the chaos, not even breathing hard, while Carl struggled to get up from the wreckage of expensive dishes. "How did you do that?" Lisa whispered, her phone still recording. Marcus looked at her with eyes that held depths they had never suspected. "You learn things growing up in places where being weak means being dead." Lisa Hamilton sat in her luxury suite, staring at the video on her phone screen. She had watched it dozens of times since the dinner incident 3 days ago. Each time she saw something new in Marcus's movements that made her more curious about who he really was. At first she planned to edit the footage to make Marcus look bad. Maybe cut out the parts where Richard threw wine and Carl attacked first. Make it seem like Marcus was the aggressor who hurt poor Carl for no reason. But the more she studied the video, the more she realized how wrong that would be. Marcus moved, like nothing she had ever seen before. When Carl charged at him like an angry beast, Marcus stepped aside with perfect timing. His hands redirected Carl's attack with gentle touches that looked almost casual. But Lisa could see the precision in every movement, the way Marcus controlled exactly where Carl would fall and how hard he would hit the ground. This was not lucky self-defense. This was someone with serious training showing incredible restraint. Marcus could have really hurt Carl, maybe even killed him, but instead he just embarrassed him. The more Lisa watched, the more ashamed she felt about her part in the harassment. She started digging into Marcus's background, using her family's connections to access databases that ordinary people could not reach. What she found made her stomach drop with shock and fear. Marcus Coleman was not just a scholar. He was Marcus Ghost Coleman, former champion of the underground fighting circuit. The records showed fight after fight where he dominated opponents with a style that mixed human martial arts with something else, something alien and strange. The underground circuit was brutal but legal in the colony worlds. Fighters used any technique that worked, including combat methods learned from studying dead alien races. Marcus had been undefeated for 3 years, earning enough prize money to pay for his education at the best universities in human space. His fighting nickname, Ghost, came from the way he seemed to disappear and reappear during fights. Opponents would throw punches that should have connected, only to find empty air where Marcus had been standing. Then he would strike from impossible angles, ending fights with surgical precision that left his opponents unconscious but uninjured. Lisa found video clips of his fights buried in old sports archives. Watching them made her hands shake. This was the same man they had been bullying for weeks, the same gentle scholar who apologized for defending himself against Carl. They had been tormenting someone who could have ended all of them without breaking a sweat. The discovery made her feel sick with guilt and terror. She had helped Richard and his friends attack a man who chose not to fight back. Not because he was weak, but because he was strong enough to show mercy. They had mistaken his kindness for weakness and his restraint for cowardice. Without really thinking about it, Lisa uploaded the unedited video to the station's social network. She added a simple caption, "Dr. Marcus Coleman defending himself against unprovoked attack." Then she shared it to her personal feeds, which connected to networks across human space. The response was immediate and explosive. Within hours, the Yao video had thousands of views and hundreds of comments. People recognized Marcus's fighting style and started sharing his old championship records. The story spread like wildfire across the galaxy's communication networks. Comments poured in from all over human space. Former fighters recognized Marcus and shared stories about his legendary matches. Scientists praised his research contributions and academic achievements. Regular people expressed outrage at the way he had been treated by spoiled rich kids who never earned anything in their lives. Ghost Coleman was the greatest fighter of his generation, wrote one former opponent. The fact that he chose books over battles makes him even more impressive. This man earned 3 doctoral degrees while holding championship titles, posted a university professor. He represents the best of humanity. Those rich bullies should be ashamed, commented a colony worker. This scholar warrior could have destroyed them, but chose mercy instead. The video caught the attention of Admiral Kate Morrison, commander of the Human Defense Fleet's Exploration Division. She sat in her office aboard the battleship Defiance, watching Marcus's smooth movements and reading his academic record. This combination of brain and brawn was exactly what humanity needed for the challenges ahead. Admiral Morrison had been tracking reports of a new alien species on the edge of human space. The Kethvar Empire was making contact with human colonies, but their culture only respected strength combined with wisdom. They wanted to negotiate with humans, but only if humanity could provide representatives who embodied their ideal of the scholar warrior. Finding someone with both advanced academic credentials and proven combat skills had seemed impossible. Most scientists were purely intellectual, while most fighters lacked the education for complex negotiations. But Marcus Coleman was perfect for the job. The admiral began making plans to recruit Marcus for a classified diplomatic mission. His unique background made him the ideal choice to represent humanity in first contact with a warrior culture that valued both knowledge and strength. Meanwhile, Richard Blackwood and his friends watched their social standing crumble as the video spread. Their families received angry messages from business partners and political allies. The footage made them look like cowards attacking someone who could have seriously hurt them, but chose not to. Carl had suffered the worst humiliation. The video showed him being handled like a child by someone half his size. His expensive body modifications and enhanced muscles meant nothing against Marcus's skill and technique. Friends who once respected his strength now laughed at how easily he had been defeated. Danny and Richard faced their own problems as the story gained attention. Their behavior looked even worse when people learned about Marcus's background and achievements. They had attacked not just any scholar, but a champion fighter who had chosen restraint and mercy over violence. Dr. Elena Vasquez brought printouts of the viral comments to Marcus's office. "You should see this," she said with a smile. "The whole galaxy is talking about you." Marcus read through the messages with growing amazement. People he had never met were defending him and praising his choices. His old fighting fans were proud that he had used his education to help humanity understand alien cultures. His academic colleagues respected him even more for the strength he had never bragged about. For the first time since coming to Neo Geneva Station, Marcus felt like he truly belonged somewhere. Not because of pity or charity, but because he had earned respect through his choices and actions. His grandmother would have been proud. Admiral Kate Morrison arrived at Neo Geneva Station 3 days after the video went viral. Her military transport ship docked at the main port, drawing curious stares from the wealthy residents who rarely saw Defense Fleet vessels. The admiral was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded warships for 20 years and earned respect through skill, not family connections. Marcus was working in his lab when Dr. Elena Vasquez knocked on his "George, there's someone here to see you," she said with excitement in her voice. "Admiral Morrison wants to speak with you privately." Marcus felt confused as he followed Dr. Vasquez to the station commander's office. He had never met any military officers, and he could not imagine why one would want to talk to him. Maybe this was about the viral video and the trouble it had caused. Admiral Morrison stood when Marcus entered the room. She wore a simple black uniform with silver rank insignia, but her presence filled the space like a force of nature. "Dr. Coleman," she said, extending her hand. "I've been following your work for some time. Your recent discovery about ancient human presence in Vorton space is remarkable." Marcus shook her hand, surprised by her firm grip and direct manner. "Thank you, Admiral. I'm not sure why my research would interest the Defense Fleet." "Sit down, Doctor. I have a proposition that could change your life and possibly save humanity from a war we're not ready to fight." Admiral Morrison activated a holographic display that showed star maps of the outer colonies. Red markers indicated several human settlements near the edge of explored space. 6 months ago, we made contact with a new alien species called the Kethvar Empire. They're powerful, technologically advanced, and very interested in human territory. Marcus studied the display with growing concern. The Kethvar controlled dozens of star systems and had military technology that rivaled humanity's best weapons. Are they hostile? That depends on us, Admiral Morrison replied. The Kethvar have a unique culture that combines warfare with scholarship. They only respect leaders who prove themselves in both combat and intellectual pursuits. Their emperor wants to meet with human representatives, but only if we can provide someone who embodies their ideal of the scholar warrior. Marcus began to understand why the Admiral had come to see him. You want me to be that representative. The viral video showed exactly the qualities the Kethvar respect. You're a brilliant scientist with proven combat skills who chooses wisdom over violence. Their culture values restraint as much as strength. You're perfect for this mission. The weight of responsibility settled on Marcus's shoulders like a heavy blanket. Representing humanity in first contact with a warrior race was far beyond anything he had imagined. What would this involve? You would join my diplomatic team and travel to the Kethvar homeworld. If the negotiations succeed, we establish peaceful trade relations and avoid a war that could cost millions of lives. If they fail, the Admiral did not need to finish that sentence. Marcus thought about his grandmother's lessons about using strength to protect others. This was exactly what she had meant. His unique combination of knowledge and fighting ability could help keep humanity safe from a war they might not win. I need time to consider this, Marcus said. Of course, but don't take too long. The Kethvar delegation arrives here tomorrow for preliminary meetings. They specifically requested to meet the scholar warrior from the viral transmission. After Admiral Morrison left, Marcus walked to the observation deck where he often went to think. Jupiter's swirling storms reminded him of the chaos in his own life. Everything was changing so fast that he could barely keep up. Richard Blackwood was waiting for him there. The young man looked terrible, with dark circles under his eyes and rumpled clothes. His usual arrogance had been replaced by something that looked almost like shame. I wanted to apologize, Richard said without looking at Marcus. What we did to you was wrong. I know that now. Marcus studied Richard's face, looking for signs of deception or another cruel trick. But he saw only genuine regret and the broken pride of someone whose world had collapsed around him. Why? Marcus asked. Why did you hate me so much? Richard slumped against the observation window. Because you earned everything you have. Your degrees, your position, your reputation. All of it came from your own work and talent. I've never earned anything in my life. Everything was handed to me because of my family name. That doesn't excuse what you did. No, it doesn't. But watching that video made me realize something. You could have destroyed me and my friends anytime you wanted. You chose not to because you're a better person than any of us deserve. Marcus felt some of his anger fade as he looked at Richard's broken expression. His grandmother had taught him that hatred was poison, but forgiveness was medicine for both the hurt and the one who caused it. I don't forgive you, Marcus said carefully, but I understand that people can change if they want to badly enough. The next day, the Kethvar delegation arrived at Neo Geneva Station. Their ship was massive and sleek, with weapons that could destroy the entire station if they chose to use them. The aliens themselves were impressive, standing nearly 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished metal. Their war leader, called Thektar, requested an immediate meeting with Marcus. The encounter took place in the main conference room, with Admiral Morrison and the station leadership watching nervously from the sides. Thektar spoke through a translation device, his voice deep and resonant. The viral transmission shows you possess the qualities our people respect. Scholar warrior Marcus Coleman, we would test your worthiness to speak for your species. Before anyone could object, a young Kethvar stepped forward and issued a formal challenge to single combat. The test was not meant to hurt anyone, but to measure Marcus's skill and character under pressure. Marcus accepted the challenge, knowing that refusing would end any chance of peaceful negotiations. The fight was brief but impressive. Marcus used techniques derived from his study of Vorthon combat methods, showing respect for alien fighting traditions while demonstrating human adaptability. When the young Kethvar yielded, Thektar made a sound that the translator identified as approving laughter. You fight with wisdom as well as skill, human scholar warrior. Our emperor will be pleased to meet with you. Later, as Marcus prepared to leave Neo Geneva Station aboard Admiral Morrison's ship, Dr. Elena Vasquez gave him a data crystal containing all his research. Your work will continue, she promised, and maybe you'll discover new things about alien cultures that could help humanity even more. Marcus looked back at the station one last time as their ship pulled away. Through the observation windows, he could see Richard Blackwood watching their departure. The young man raised his hand in what might have been a farewell salute. Ready for your new career as humanity's first scholar warrior diplomat? Admiral Morrison asked. Marcus thought about his grandmother's words about knowledge making people free, and how true strength came from protecting others. Yes, he said. I'm ready. Their ship turned toward the unknown stars where the Kethvar Empire waited. Marcus carried with him the hopes of billions of humans and the hard-earned wisdom that sometimes the greatest victories came not from fighting, but from choosing when not to fight. The viral video that started as cruel entertainment had become the key to peace between species. And Marcus Coleman, the scholar who learned to fight in underground pits, would help write the next chapter of human history among the stars.